Welcome everybody to the Boat Buyer Secret Weapons Sunday Night Live. We are going to be started here shortly, and if you can just let me know if anybody's on, let me know that you can hear me. I would appreciate it, and we'll get started here in a minute or two. And before we begin, my daughter wanted to come and say hi real quick. Her and I, you want to say hi? Her and I just went to the Panthers football game.
They lost.
Yeah, they did lose. You can say hi.
Hi.
All right. Thanks, Garth. Okay. Hey, I need you to sit and you need to be quiet, okay?
Okay.
No monkeying around back there, please.
I won't.
So, thanks. Great. I appreciate you guys. Brock, Joe, Ray, thanks for letting me know you can hear me. Let me know where you're watching. And as we begin, just go ahead and throw your questions in. Bill, good to see you. Again, you were on last week. Mike from Minnesota. Hey, Mike, we just my daughter and I went to the Vikings Panthers game today. You guys got us in overtime, so it was a great game to watch. My youngest daughter's first NFL game. So my oldest daughter went a couple of weeks ago. If Garth, good to see you from California. So go ahead and throw any questions that you have in. Um, my Architus one, I'll get you here just a second. We'll start with you. So it was a great time. I am beat. We got started at 11. We headed down to the stadium, took the train in, um, had some stadium food, had a bunch of snacks. Yeah, Mike, it was a great game. We our fourth quarter, the stands got just excited, which was awesome. And but unfortunately, you guys pulled it out. So okay, poly are powder coated aluminum fuel tanks. Mike or my Arcturus one. What kind of boat are you putting it in? Is this a brand new boat, or are you retrofitting a new one? Um, or I should say, are you replacing an old one where you've got to pull the floor up and it's usually a big giant mess? Let me know that. Yeah, it was an incredible game, and yeah, they got us. They got down into field goal range, and I mean the Vikings outplayed us all game, so they deserved that one, but somehow we put it together. I think we had a block punt for a touchdown and a fumble that we took over at like the 7-yard line or something, and our offense didn't do jack diddly squat the whole game. So, but it was fun. It was fun. So my Arcturus one, let me know what the situation for the fuel tanks is. And this is not my expertise. So I'm going to be talking a little out of school here, looking new, leery about poly. Your thoughts? Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about the poly. If a manufacturer is putting it in, you're going to be okay. A lot of them are moving to it. The you know, I if it's built properly, there's no issues. It's just it's easier. It's in the manufacturing process. The aluminum, it can be okay. The benefit of some aluminum is that you can kind of structure it the right way and build it to fit between stringers, and but a poly has to be a rectangle or a square. And but I would have no problem with doing a poly tank. The plastic that they're using is fine, but what kind of boat are you putting it in? What has you concerned about that? Joe Hannick. I'll get to you here in just a second. If my Arcturus has a response to what type of boat he's looking at specifically. Yeah, on a Key West, you're fine. You are not going to have a problem. A matter of fact, I don't know many people in that category of that center console. Hey, please shut that door. In that center console line that use aluminum. I wouldn't have any problem whatsoever with that. So, um, at all. Let's go. Joe, I told you, Ray, I'm sorry. I didn't see your question there. And Mike, I didn't see your question. So I'll get back to you two guys just so you know. Joe, how do you feel about a broker representing the owner and the buyer? Closed on in 2014. They found a few things. The owner fixed a couple, but not as much as I feel she should. Um, Joe, you're exactly right. If you've got a broker, the broker doesn't make a commission if that boat doesn't sell. So if they've got a buyer, I you know, I'm not going to take the broker's advice on much. If it's the seller's, I'll talk in real estate terms. They don't use this really in boats, but if it's the seller's agent that's representing the seller, they are representing their interest. They've signed a contract that they're representing their interest. Now, in the CPYB, the Certified Professional Yacht Brokers, there's a Florida yacht broker like Credo or Code of Conduct, and there's talk about ethics, and they do allow dual brokerage where you represent the buyer and seller, but they they signed the contract with the seller, and that's whose interest they're representing. Now, with that said, they're on the hook for disclosing anything material. And there's been cases where the broker has been held liable for things that they either knew about or they should have known about, and the broker lost those cases. So, although there's some precedent there. You've got to go through all of that rigmarole. I would say that the seller's agent, I would just, hey, I'll listen to your advice with the grain of salt. I'll listen to your comments, but I'm going to listen to the surveyor and I'm going to make my own choice. You're buying a 2014 370 Dancer. That's a good size boat, couple 100,000, to maybe 300,000. I don't know what it was priced at, but you could probably find yourself a buyer's agent. It sounds like you've already gone down, Joe, gone down the path. It feels like he didn't represent your interests. Um, um, so yeah, that's the situation. Is you can go out and on a boat that size, you might be able to find a buyer's agent that says, "Hey, listen, I'll do a contract with you to represent you," and then this is the tricky part in the boating industry is there's no set standard of we split it 50-50. The two brokers have to negotiate how that fee is split. It's usually a 10% fee that the seller pays, and then that 10% gets divvied up however they negotiate. So that's a part that a buyer's broker has to deal with that part. But Joe, if you haven't closed yet, my recommendation to you is to go ahead and work with your surveyor. You don't have to sign the contract if she's not willing to. The seller's not willing to deliver that boat in a manner that you're comfortable with. You should be able to get your deposit back if there's a deposit on it. That it's typically, I don't know how your contract was written, but it's typically refundable. So hopefully that hopefully help you there. He's acting like I should feel lucky to find a yeah. You know, at a certain point in this market, he's kind of right. But I say this in my first time Boat Buyers Academy. I say this on several of my videos is listen, there's always another boat. Now, it may not come around as quick right now, but Sea Ray made several 370 Dancers. Regal makes a nice cruiser in that size that I think Sea Ray's the top in that style and size of boat. Hey, you got to be quiet, babe. In that size and style of boat, I think Sea Ray is the best. I'm a little partial because that's what I sold, but Regal builds a nice boat in that size. 2014, who else was building them? Those were the two of the bigger ones. But yeah, it's don't if you're not comfortable with the decision, understand you may lose that boat. You should be able to get your deposit back, and it may take you a while to find another one, but only accept a boat that you're comfortable with, and talk to your surveyor. Use your surveyor as your expert, and that would be my best advice to you, Joe. So thanks for that question. All right, so I'm going to go back up. I think Ray and then Mike. I'm coming to you. Bought a Bennington Tri-Tune. The manuals are not the best. It's worth to buy an engine manual. What you got with your 200 Merc should be, you know, something like this. This is from like a 1994, but it should have everything in it, on that. And the boat manual sucks. They just, there's not a whole lot in there. They just give you, kind of like when you buy a house, they give you the individual manual from each component. So you got a stereo manual, you got a lighting manual, you got whatever, the upholstery. You should have a Mercury manual on that 200 Merc, and that's what I would go by. If you if you don't have that, you should go talk to your dealer and say, hey, I didn't get a Mercury manual. I need the Mercury manual. And now they're smaller. Now this is the old one. Now they're the half of this, but that's what you should get. And it'll have everything that you need on it. And you can also, the Mercury website is a pretty good resource, but I like to read that manual, the break-in period, the maintenance, and then the do's and don'ts. What type of gas? I think that Merc I think they still take 87 octane. They're going to recommend straight gas. They may recommend 90, but I think it's still regular 87 octane, and that's what you want to use. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to, I just saw something from Joe here. All right. We're getting so many comments, and we've got so many people that are okay, cool. All right. I thought I had another comment from Joe. So Ray, hopefully that answers yours. Let's see. And then we're coming back to Mike. Mike was on early. We're in the market going to be good to buy a pontoon. Here's, I need to do another one. I need to do another one of, man, these comments are rolling in. Going to buy before the vid happened. All right. So here's the thing. Here's my take on, and Mike, are you looking new? I think that's what you said. I got to get better at handling these comments. They're rolling in so fast. Okay. All right. So are you going to buy new or used? Here's what I see happening. And there's only a few slight differences. What I see. I went to IBEX, the International Boat Buyer or Boat Builders Expo down in Tampa a couple weeks ago. I did a couple videos on that you may have seen. But one of the big conversations that you heard in the hallway was, what does your supply chain look like? What do you expect? Are you behind? Are you keeping up? Can you guarantee my orders? So that was the manufacturers asking the vendors is, can you come through for us? And the response was a sales guy saying, hey, yeah, absolutely, we're going to be able to fulfill those orders, no problem. Then you started hearing some conversations outside of the sales conversations, and it was, man, we're doing everything we can, but we don't know. There was a certain point of we don't know. There's some things we just don't have control of. Raw material coming in, COVID shutdowns from our suppliers, container ships being able to get into the ports in the U.S., transport, our employees to be able to keep up with demand. And so I think it's opinion, but a somewhat educated opinion, because of you still walk into a dealer today and there's no inventory on the showroom floor. Right now in October, dealers should be taking in 2020 inventory to build their inventory up to their highest levels so that when the boat show starts in January, February, March, whenever their seasonal boat show is, that's when they want to have the highest supply. Right now, they've got zero inventory. So it's going to take the manufacturers still, I said this 3 or 4 months ago, it's going to take them still a year to build that inventory up for the dealers to get to regular level. I'm hearing from dealers that they have ordered boats out the wazoo, so they still are bringing in order boats and not inventory boats for their showroom floor. And what that tells me is we're going to see this high level of demand unless something crazy happens with the economy. I'm not worried about all these new people bought boats and they're going to sell them in a year. I just don't think that's going to happen because travel hasn't opened up. International travel, I don't see opening up anytime soon. It's still awkward to go to some restaurants. And frankly, some restaurants can't get the help. Many people aren't going to go to Disney or go to a theme park like that. So your options for fun money activities with your family, boating is still way up there. My friends that travel for business are traveling more, but it's not at the level that it was. I have people that used to travel some for business, and they're just not. My friends that are, medical device salespeople and, VPs and presidents of company, they're traveling a decent amount. But even some of them have scaled back a little bit. So I think we at least another year, if not a year and a half of this high demand. So here's your choice. Let's see if you answered new. Okay. So on the new side, what that tells me is, hey, raw material price continues to go up because of the demand, because of the lack of supply, because of all the supply chain issues that we talked about. Is the price jump from 2020 to 2021 was 5-6%. I think it went, from what I was hearing from manufacturers and from dealers, it was 5 to 8%, depending on the models. So I see that continuing to go up. And then, Mike, it's just a personal decision of you've got to make the decision. You've got to make the decision of, do we want to wait for that market to come down and for the prices to come down? Because I truly believe that will happen as well. I don't know how much they'll come down because I think, all right, here's what happens. And I need to do this video so I can articulate this more clearly than just doing it on the fly. Is they only built an extra 50,000 boats. Okay. So from 2019 to 2020 to 2021, there was only an extra 50,000 boats that were built and sold. So it's not like they put an extra 50% of boats on the market. They went from 300 and some thousand to 350,000. That's when you spread that across all of the different categories and all of the US, it might be North America. It's not like they put an extra 100,000, 200,000 boats on the market and they increased it by 20%. They only increased it by like 10 or 15%. So that's not a flood of new boats. All the used ones, some of them, they were selling boats that should have never been sold and people got screwed. And, those people might leave the market. Some people are definitely going to leave the market, but there's still a greater demand. And because of the supply chain issues, it's not like they're going to make 500,000 boats in 2022. They're probably going to make 350 to 400,000. So another 50,000. And it's just a matter of how long are you willing to wait before you start see that downturn. And I would say 2023, 2024, maybe. Again, it's my estimate. It's my prediction. That's my best that I could share with you. So hopefully that helps you. Guys, thanks for all the questions and the comments. This is awesome. I'm having a hard time keeping up. So if I skip you, let me know. If I see, you by no means have to pay to ask a question. I will answer every question to a certain point. I'll try to limit these to an hour, but there's a little dollar sign. If you want to throw a few bucks out, I'll try to push you up to the top. But let's see here. Ray, I think we got you. Joe, I think we talked about that. Scott, looking to get into boating with no hands-on experience. What are your thoughts on freedom, carefree? Um, getting into owning. Okay, so Scott, it's all about the franchise. So Brunswick has now bought Freedom. So Brunswick owns Freedom Boat Club. Brunswick is starting to buy back the franchises, but most of them are franchise owned. So it's just like going into McDonald's. They've all got the same system, they've all got the same rules. But this McDonald's that's owned by this franchisor and this McDonald that's 10 miles down the road owned by another franchisor could have completely different experiences. This group is trained really well, this group is trained terribly. For the franchise in the boat club world is even more extreme because it's not like they send them to Hamburger University in the boating world. So it's all dependent on the local franchise. I know Freedom franchise owners. I know Carefree franchise owners. I've talked to the COO of Carefree, I can't think what his name is. Kevin something is his name, up in Maryland or Virginia, something like that. And I think it is a great way to get started where you're not sure where you want to go. You want that little bit more hands-on. You don't want to mess with maintenance. You want to roll up, pull out the coolers, and sometimes they'll even provide that for you. Hop on and go, come back, be done with it. You lose what I call boat freedom, which is, oh hell, it's nice out today, honey. Let's load up and go on the water. So that part you miss, but I think boat clubs are great. You can watch my video, Scott, boat clubs, boat ownership, and boat rentals, and I talk about my thoughts on all of them, the pluses and minuses. But Carefree versus Freedom, it all comes down to where you're located and the franchisors. I would go to, most of them do open houses. So I would go to the open houses or go to the marinas where they are, and I would talk to the members, and I would talk to the members that are just on the dock and not necessarily the members that they kind of are there. I don't want to say shills, but are there, hey, these are champions. There'd be like the people on my channel that I use for my testimonials. I'm not putting the ones out that say, oh, this is the worst. Fortunately, I've never had that, but I'm using my people that have been on the podcast that have really gotten a ton of value, which for me, fortunately, it's most of them. But I would just go to the docks where they have their marinas, where they're hosting their clubs. And I would say, hey, what's your experience been? Do you get access to boats? Are the boats in good condition? Do they keep them clean? How often do they actually keep their fleet up, or rotate their boats to bring new ones in? What is their actual, this is an important one, membership to boats? So I think Carefree has a 7-to-1 ratio they try to hit. Freedom has a 7, 8, 9-to-1 ratio that they try to hit. That ratio, I think, is really important. So, Scott, hopefully that helps. Let's see if you had any. Okay. All right. Joe, we got Bill. Ever heard of someone purchase a used boat and trailer, never been titled in any state, and now the third owner lives in the state that requires it? The trailer, yes. The trailer, there's several states that don't require a trailer to be titled. The one I live in, South Carolina, does not require a title. So if you were to buy a 15-year-old boat that's been in South Carolina its whole life, that trailer would have never been titled. Now the boat would and the motor would, and there's only I think one or less than a handful of states that don't require the boat to be titled, and or the motor. But I can't think of those states off the top of my head, Bill. I would do a search on that, and do they title boats in this state? And if it hasn't been, it's a red flag. I would call the DNR, the wildlife, wherever they register boats there. Give them the HIN, the hull identification number. It's on the back starboard side, the right side as you're facing the bow, and it's stamped onto the fiberglass if it's a fiberglass boat, or it's a plate on a aluminum boat. And you can get that number. It'll be letters and numbers, and then the last two are the year of the boat. Take that, or the registration numbers if they have registration numbers, and you should be able to find out if it's on the up and up. So hopefully that helps you, Bill. And Bill, thank you. It's good to see you again. Thanks for being here again. Mike, we got Ray, we got Michael Carey looking at a '05 Crown Line. I tell you what, my family owned, oh shit, 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them. My parents bought a '99, I think it was, probably '98 or '99 Crown Line. My brother has owned, '03 and an '06, I think. I loved them. They were great boats. In 2008, 2009, 2010, Crown Line went into receivership. The employees bought it back, so it's a different ownership group, but a lot of the same staff, is there. So but again, Michael, it's not about the brand on a boat that's 16 years old. Um, yeah, 15, 16 years old. It's about how well was that boat maintained. So go watch my how to buy a used bow rider or deck boat video. Check out the First Time Boat Buyers Academy if you really want to dive deep into making sure you get the best price. Make sure that you save. Make sure you know how to inspect it. I go through an actual boat in that academy, and it's a great program. But the how to buy a used boat video is like 30, 45 minutes long. So we go into a lot of detail there. Um, check to make sure the transom solid. Check to make sure that the engine has good compression. Check the drive, the gear lube to make sure there's no water getting in. Check all the fluids. When's the last time the impeller changed? All those questions that are in the toolkit as well that you can get for free at boatbuyersecretweapon.com/toolkit. But yeah, for that, we had my parents got a 22-foot open bow. My brother had two 26-foot open bows. I've got a friend that still has one. Several friends that have owned them in that vintage as well. So I really liked them. I loved running my 22-foot that my parents had. I love that boat. That thing ran 50 miles an hour, 55 if it was just you, trimmed out. Had a 350 in it. It was a sweet running boat. Okay, so let's see here. How we coming along? Let's see. Okay, Mike is a new Mike. Yeah, sorry, Mike. Not the answer that you were looking for, but all right. So where did we go? Ray, we had Crown Line, we had Ezra. All right. What's the law for Vermont, New Hampshire boating? What age can you boat? I have no idea, Ezra. If you just search boating age in Vermont, New Hampshire, you'll find it. It'll be on their DNR wildlife, but I don't have any idea. I've got a video out there called, what is it? Boating ages, or no, boating laws by state. And I went through and I did it by state, but I don't remember. I did the research and it changes every year. And I did that video a year or so ago. But your best bet is probably just check out that video because there's some other good information in it. But just Google it in Vermont and New Hampshire. A lot of them, what they're doing is they're doing it by date of birth. So if you were born after or before after if you were born after 1985, everybody's got to take a safe boating course and get a license, but I don't know what those are. Brock, you're right, my Sportsman was supposed to be here February, March. Now I just got an update Friday. It's going to be earliest holy crap, mid-May. Interesting. That's Brock, I hadn't heard that from Sportsman, but I did talk to a dealer I know the other day about Yamahas. They're a Yamaha dealer, and he was saying, "Hey, we still are having boats arrive, so they're at the dealership, but they didn't rig them up. They've got all the rigging there. All they got to do is hang the motor and hook everything up, but they can't sell them yet. So, and Yamaha has really been having that problem. Mercury, not as much. Some of the components they're starting to, I think." But because Mercury's in the U.S., they're not having that supply as dramatic of a supply chain issue. Suzuki is a little bit, but they're not as large, so you don't hear about it as often. So thanks for sharing that, Brock. I appreciate it. Foxmouth. Hey, Foxmouth has been on like the last 3, 4, maybe even 5 of these. So good to see you again. Closed cooling system on a Merc. Installed one. Once installed, do you need to flush it? I have never done one before. I have never installed one. So I don't know. I Foxmouth, I can't add anything, not even a opinion, because I have not done it before. Here's what I will say though: if you do have a closed cooling system in, um, the yeah, you don't really need to worry about flushing because the water is going to just drain out of that lower unit, and you're cooling the engine down. So the flushing is really to clean those manifolds and risers to get all the salt out of there, because it's just sort of sitting level. And now you're closed cooling, so you're just pulling antifreeze, basically your coolant from inside the boat. It's running through. So the only thing you're cooling with the water, um, is the drive, is that foot, the lower unit. Um, I work in PC industry. We expect supply chain to cut up. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Joe. 2023. So that puts us, we're going into 2021, 2022 next year. So what is that? 12, 14 months if it's January of 2023, but let's say it's June. Stop being a goofball. Uh, let's say it's 18, call it 18 months from today if it's June of 2023. So thank you, Joe. And that's what my thought is. It's gonna be a while. Again, sorry, Mike. Scott, you're welcome. Bill, let's see, Bill, I think, how do I title it now? So if you've already bought it, what you need to do, Bill, is you need to call. Bill asked about it hasn't been registered or titled in a couple of owners. So you typically in South Carolina, because I'm on the state line. So my lake, the state line ran right down the middle of the lake outside my marina. So North Carolina, you had a title. South Carolina, you didn't on the trailers. So what they would do is the DMV would say, we need 2 bill of sales. So I need the bill of sale from the guy that bought it and is selling it to you, and I need the bill of sale of you buying it from that guy that had it in the non-titled state. So 2 bills of sales, and maybe an inspection. Depending on the trailer, I had to take 2 trailers to the DMV so they could inspect it. There was something weird about those 2 trailers, like the serial number wasn't stamped on it or something goofy, I remember. Just call your DMV, and ask them, hey, I'm buying this trailer that's never been titled because it's coming from X state or whatever the reason is, or maybe don't even tell them the reason. That doesn't have a title. What do I need? And that should get you there. But 2 bills of sales is probably, hey, if you're going to mess around, I need you to go. Okay. So hopefully that helps you. You're welcome. Your mom wants that back is why. Ezra, you're welcome. And the boats and accessories are going up 5%. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, Brock, that you're seeing everything go up. I mean, I think, I'm not an economist. I know enough and pay attention to a few things, but the inflation, the gas prices going up, it's all going to trickle down, and everything's going to get more expensive unless things change. I'm not a political guy at all, so I don't ever want to get into those conversations one way or another. But I do think that we'll see prices going up on everything, boats included, and new boats especially. Member checking in, leaning towards sale. Did it in the past Great Lakes, but now looking at possible power. You saying does not bode well. Well, T Morg, yeah, I see for the next year and a half, that the used boat market will be similar. The used boat market will be, you gotta know what you want. You gotta act quick to lock it in. And when I say lock it in, I'm talking, hey, yes, I will buy the boat at that price. Negotiate first. With I talk about it in the First Time Boat Buyers Academy, how to do that, and then do your sea trial. Don't skip the sea trial, the test drive, the on-water demo, whatever you want to call it. Don't skip that inspection part. Inspect the boat fully, get it on the water and run it. For you people that are in the northeast where it's freezing, upper Midwest, hey, that means maybe January I would not buy a boat, even if it seems like the perfect opportunity. It's just, to me, there's a lot of risk unless I'm buying from a dealer that is going to put something in writing about, we're going to do this, and you've got an out some way or another. But yeah, I think we're going to see that same thing that we've been seeing for the last year and a half of high demand, lower supply, and prices continuing to go up. And it depends. If the new boat market can pump out more boats than I think they can, that could kind of slow the increase of used boat prices. Um, Lenders at a certain point are going to say we're not going to lend that much, which will keep it from going too high. But right now, hey, if you want a boat and you can't get a new one, you might have to be pushed to the used, or the price point has to push you into the used. As I think we're going to see it continue. So that, again, my opinion, but um, that's my thoughts. All right. So Wayne, looking at a 94 Falcon, not familiar with the brand, did some research. I don't know anything about Falcons. I've never heard of the brand either, Wayne. Um, yeah. Again, it's a, when you're talking a 94, you're talking a boat that's what, 25 years old. So it's, listen, if it was going to break, if it was cheaply made, if it was poorly made, it's going to show itself. You're going to see it when you inspect the boat the way I show you to teach it. I don't even know enough about Falcon to tell you what style of boat it is. My gut tells me a Falcon might be a go fast boat, but but I don't know. Um, I don't know what it is. So, unfortunately, Wayne, I don't have any information for you. If it, awesome, T Morg. I appreciate you investing in that boat buyers program, and you're very welcome for the conversation here and answering your questions. I appreciate that support, Wayne. Um, Depending on what type of motors, here's my take on the engine. This may be valuable for you, something to take away. An outboard Mercury, Mercruiser, Volvo, Suzuki, Yamaha, for a pleasure boat use. I typically say the useful life of that motor is 1,000 to 1,500 hours, depending on the style of boat and how it's being used. 50 to 100 hours a year. 50 hours is kind of the freshwater lake boater type usage. That's not a water sports enthusiast. The surfers will put 200 hours on a year because they're always running. But if you're just a regular pleasure boater on a lake, 50 hours a year is about average. If you're on the coast, you do a little bit more running, or you're a fisherman, or your water sports, 100 hours a year is kind of average. So if you look at, if you're 1,500 hours on that, you've got another 700 hours of good, useful time left. If it's 1,000, you've got another 200 hours or so left, 250. So if you're a freshwater boater, that's a freshwater boat, 5 years of useful life on the low end. Um, 10, 15 years on the high end. Again, if they took exceptional care of it, it can go beyond that, but that's kind of the average time frame that I use to get a sense of what's left in the boat. So hopefully, even though I didn't know the brand of boat, there's just, man, there's just so many. I just can't know all brands, all styles. I know quite a bit. But heck, I had on the podcast the other day, I talked to Brett Whitman, that's a spear fisherman and a diver, and had a great conversation about a part of boating I know zero about. And that was a cool conversation that's coming out soon. Foxmoth, always a good show, right on, no engine flushing, but specifically the unit drains, the heat transfer. So I have to flush periodically, not every use. Yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't know for sure how that flush the add-on would go in. If you've got a from the factory closed cool system, yeah, it might make sense to flush out that lower unit sometimes, but it's not as dire. It's not as dire as when it's coming in up into the engines, the risers, and the manifold. So again, Foxmoth, I when it comes to the maintenance part and the technician part, I try to limit where I give advice there, where I'm a little bit outside of my depths. So then that's one of them where it's a little bit more that saltwater environment, that aftermarket add-on. What would be required there? Can you trailer around frequently? Mike, pontoons, when it comes to trailering, yeah, so many lakes in Minnesota. I did a series of 3 interviews. I'm looking to release the third one soon, hopefully this week, with DNR conservation officers up in Minnesota. One on the Great Lakes, one on the Mississippi River, and one on freshwater lakes. That freshwater lake one is coming out hopefully this coming week, or soon anyway. But a lot of great water up there, a lot of places to go. When it comes to trailering a pontoon, going from a 22-foot to a 26-foot, you're not adding a ton of weight, maybe 500 pounds, because you're adding, 4 foot of aluminum with air. You're adding 4 foot of 8.5 sheet plywood, and you're adding, maybe a couple of feet of furniture. So you're not adding that much weight. When you're towing a pontoon, it's tall, but it's a fairly light load. So, other than maybe taking corners a little bit wider, being a little bit hairier if you get in a really, really tight situation, I don't think you're going to see any difference trailering a 22-foot boat versus a 26-foot boat. And that is a 4 feet on a pontoon is a crap load of room. I mean, that I'm talking a ton of space if you move up to that. Yeah, at 23-foot, Mike, a 23-foot, you are, I don't think you would notice anything different from a 20, a 22 to a 23. It's just, and in Minnesota, it's not. I talked to a guy on a podcast that was going to be trailering through the mountains of Colorado. That's a little bit different because you've got wind catching the side, but up in Minnesota, I can't see that you're going to have that big of a difference one versus another. So hopefully that helps. T-Morg, thank you again. Thank you for investing in that program, Joe. Looks like Falcon is a sub of Blue Water. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for looking that up, Joe. I didn't recognize that brand. I didn't even know that Brunswick had owned that brand at one point. So yeah, and again, when you're talking about a boat, in my opinion, a used boat that's 3 to 5 years old or older, it is, when you're looking at a boat that's 3 to 5 years old or older, it's more about the way it's been maintained, the way that engine been maintained, the way the boat's been maintained, than it is about the brand. Not the newer you're in that range, the brand has, a more impact, and, but if it was going to break, if it was built cheaply, you're going to see those signs in the first 3 to 5 years. And on a boat that's 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years old, that's all that matters, is how it's been maintained, because again, if it was going to break, it's going to break. And you'll see that it's been broke. And you'll see the repair in a lot of cases. So tires worry you. Here is the one thing I will say, Mike, watch my video on pontoon trailers. I don't know if you just type that in the channel, you'll find it. The biggest thing I would say on a pontoon is don't get the little tiny donut tires. If you're going to be traveling long distance, get the big full size tires. Good tires on a 23 footer. You're going to have a dual axle because of the weight, and you'll be fine. When people get in trouble with pontoons is they're running on these little tiny tires. I don't know what the size is, and they're going 75 miles an hour. That thing is traveling at such high RPMs. I mean, it's just and if they get hot, and that's when you're going to have problems. And you've got all that weight on it, especially a 23 foot if it's a tri-tune with the bigger outboard. hell, even if it's a 23 foot with a 50 on it, on those little donut tires, and you're going, 300 miles, and you're traveling on a hot August day on black pavement at, 2 o'clock in the afternoon where it's just hot, that tire is going to get so hot that you have issues. When you go to that bigger size, the RPMs slow down a little bit, and now you have less chance of having a blowout, and having a dual axle trailer. You've got a little bit of leeway. If you're going, a couple hundred miles between lakes and runs, and you're going to run in the heat of the day, hey, put two spares on. Throw, put one on each side of that tongue. With the pontoon, you got plenty of space to mount a spare tire. Throw one in the back of the truck, mount two of them on there, and you're going to be okay. Keep a close watch on your tire pressure. Keep a close watch on the tire temperature if you're going long distances. Hey, don't run for 5 hours straight in the heat of the day. Run for a couple hours, stop, shoot your infrared temperature gun at the tires, and make sure that they're within a reasonable temperature. And I say that. I don't even know what that reasonable temperature is. You can probably look that up online. But just make sure they're not getting too hot. And running the right air pressure in them is a big thing, and making sure that the age of your tires are, I think I had somebody commented this to me that owned a trucking company that they pulled a lot of trailers. I think he said 5 years, but there's an expiration date on tires when, hey, it doesn't matter how many miles you put on them. And I talk about it in my trailer video because it was fresh on my mind from his comment. But those are a couple of things that will help you out, Mike, on that. So, all right. Well, we are at 45 minutes. I don't think I've missed anybody. If I have, just throw it in there now. I'll come back down to it. Um, But thank you. This was, shoot, I was having to keep up with my questions. Falcons were built by Thunder, Formula 94 to 98, bow riders, 1822, positioned in the market as their entry level boat. Yeah, again, Wayne, even as an entry level boat, yeah, Joe, go ahead and throw it in, whatever your question is. Here's what I would make sure that you check on a boat that age that's an entry level is I would tap the crap out of that hull. And what I mean by that is I would take my screwdriver and I would tap the hull. I would take my screwdriver and I would get down in that engine compartment and I would tap my stringers. If it's got an in-floor ski locker, I would tap any wood I could feel under the seats. Anywhere I could feel some wood, fiberglass encapsulated in that year. It's something to think about in that year range. Is late 90s, early 2000s, they realized, oh, if water gets in wood, it's going to rot. And they started encapsulating wood better. They started using better quality wood. They stopped just having raw wood exposed, even in compartments and stuff. In that boat, your screwdriver, Wayne, is going to be a huge value. So what you're going to do is you're going to tap the hole, and what I'm talking about is the fiberglass, and you're looking for a nice sharp, do this on a nice solid tink off that rock solid gel coat. It should just tink. What you don't want to hear is a thud. You don't want to hear a thud where it's like that water's in there and it's not just tink, tink, tink and bouncing off. And then also take the end of your screwdriver and poke. So you're going to poke the stringers where that engine is mounted. You're going to poke in anywhere that you can feel or you can get your hand to the stringer system or wood. And then you're going to bounce up and down on the floor lightly. And you're looking for just solid floor all the way around. Again, Wayne, if you go watch that used boat video, if you look in the First Time Boat Buyer Academy, I walk through it in full. But that video, how to buy a used boat, 30-45 minutes long. And I talk about a lot of that. All right. So hopefully that helps. Chris, most pontoons I'm finding 115, but tri-tunes. Here is and I talk about this in a lot of my pontoon videos, Chris, if you want to get some more depth on it. But here's my belief. If it is a tri-tune, I'm putting a 150 or bigger on it. If it's a pontoon, I'm putting a 115, 115, 115 or smaller on it. And here's why is that 150 is going to get the max performance that it can on a tri-tune. If you put it on a double tube, it's not going to perform the way it could with the tri-tune. If you put a 115 on a tri-tune, it's not going to perform significantly better than it would on a pontoon, with this caveat. If I'm putting a crap load of weight on the boat, I like the tri-tune because it's just going to give me more buoyancy. I'm gonna not plow through the water as much. I'm gonna ride over the top of the water. So if I'm putting a lot of weight on it, okay, I can do a 115, and I'm doing it for that very, very specific reason with a tri-tune. But otherwise, I just, for the $3,000 to $5,000 that plus 7,000 to 10,000 to 15,000, depending on if you put one of those fancy tubes on it. I don't think you get enough advantage with the 115, the 115 as you would with the 150. So that's my take on when you make that switch. Um, so hopefully that answers the question. Let's see here. Chris had something else that he added. Um, yeah. So I think Chris. Okay, perfect. All right, you got it. Thanks. Joe, let's come back to you. 8.2 horizons, difference with those that aren't horizons. I heard Secor, which is sort of saltwater protection, but I don't think mine. Okay, the boat I'm looking at has a Merc 8.2 Bravo, 3 horizons. What's the difference with those that aren't horizons? Um, I don't know. I don't know. Secor, yeah, Secor has an additional corrosion protection for being left in the water. Now, Joe, what kind of boat are you buying? Um, I don't know if you said what you were looking at, Joe. Was it a cruiser? Are you the one that was looking at a cruiser? Tell me what type of boat you were looking at with those 8.2. Um, okay, the 370. Gotcha. Okay, so um, the Secor, the Secor is their extra corrosion protection for a boat like that 370 that's going to be left in the water. Probably you're probably not going to put that on a lift in most situations. You're very, very unlikely going to trailer. So the um the Secor is good if you're in saltwater. It's unnecessary if you're in freshwater. I don't know if you said where you were, Joe. I know you were on early, so you may have said. Um, let's see. Yeah, I don't see where you're from, but if you're in saltwater, absolutely valuable. It's good. If you're in freshwater, Secor doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt anything. Secors are also going to be close cooled, but I bet those 8.2s are already close cooled, which means it's not pulling up raw water from the source. It's closed more like your truck with a radiator essentially. Yeah, so you're in Seattle, so you're probably in salt water up there. So yeah, Secors would be beneficial, especially if you're leaving the boat in the water, which I would guess that you are. There's some marinas up there that would stack that boat, that they've got big enough forklifts, but it's not common in most places. But the let me do Joe. Let me do a little bit more digging on the horizons, because I want to. I know that 8.2 is an engine they've been running for a long time. And I know that sounds like I've sold. Oh shit! I probably sold a 2012 or 13 370 to a guy that absolutely loved it. A 370 dancer. He used it on a freshwater with his family, and they absolutely loved it. But I don't remember how that was equipped. Um, but let me do a little bit of research. Joe, do me a favor. Send me an email to captain at Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, and let me do a little bit of digging on that and give you a few thoughts that so I can talk specifically about that specific engine. Because I've got some technicians that I can check with that would have experience with it to see if there's something that I am not aware of. Um, Okay. Test Boga, you're welcome. Let's see. Wayne, we got you're welcome, Wayne. Joe, we got all right. So Joe, freshwater. Okay, so we talked about that. All right, Brian, watched a bunch of your videos. Thank you for I appreciate you guys that watch multiple videos and that binge on the videos. I don't know. I get a kick out of that you guys are getting good value from these videos. That's why I put them together. Looking at our first family boat, wife's wants to hold 9 for fun. Other families must be decent fishing boat. Looking at the Tahoe, two 21 fish. Brian, where are you guys not okay. Um doesn't fit in the garage. Tell me about where you're boating and what you're looking at doing on the water. So it sounds like um it sounds like you are doing some just basic family boating. You may want to do some tubing, definitely fishing from what you're saying. You're in freshwater in Iowa. I'm a Nebraska guy. I grew up in Omaha, by the way. So we got a place at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. So where do we go? Storm Lake, Iowa. We went to Storm Lake a couple times on vacation and a few other lakes around there, Lake Manawa and Council Bluffs. But tell me a little bit more fishing. My kids getting into okay, so you're serious about fishing, um, but you still want the family. Here's what I would ask you. Um, oh, we'll come back to Joe's comment. Um, all right, so Brian, you're freshwater lake boating. Are you big lake Okoboji or are you small lakes there? Two multiple people. All right, so here's the question that I like to ask first time boat buyers is to think through, Brian, is what does 80% of your boating time look like? Okay. And you may, since fishing is a big part of it, we know, okay, bigger lakes in Iowa. So we can't be too small. Um, we need to be able to handle some chop as the wind picks up and things like that. What does 80% of your time look like? And this is a conversation I want you to have with your wife and talk about reality. Okay. So, who is it? How big is your family, first of all? Okay. She put a hard limit on 9. So here's the conversation is how many people are in your family, Brian? So you've mentioned a son that's big into fishing. Um, you want to think about if you're a family of 5, then I think nine's a great number because if your kids bring a few, um, you're going to get to 9, or at least if they're teenagers, you're going to get to the weight capacity limit of 8 or 9. But going from 8 to 9 takes you from a 18, 19 footer to a 21. So just make sure that that's something that's really going to happen. Um, my family is 4, best friend family is 5. Okay, all right, gotcha. So the best friends are coming with you no matter what it sounds like. When you say best friend family is 5, that means that they're going to be part of the boating lifestyle. So I think that's a decent number then. Talk to me about your budget. Are you looking new? Or are you looking pre-owned? Tell me a little bit about where you want to be budget wise. Um, Okay, that seems check the weight limit because, and you it's gotta fit in the garage too. Okay, okay, so I would look at those fishing skis, but I would look something like, a Nautic Star, deck boat, something that's gonna give you fishing seats or a Hurricane, a 21 Hurricane that, that's gonna allow you to put fishing seats out front. It's similar. I don't know what that Tahoe 2150 looks like, if that's their bow rider. Let me pull it up to be, let's see here. Let me do this. Tahoe 2150. Okay, yeah, that style is exactly what I was thinking of. What I would like to see for you, I think, is the front mount fishing seat option where you can put a trolling motor up there if fishing is okay. So you've got a good budget to work with. Yeah, I wouldn't with that size boat. I wouldn't go any smaller than that 200, for sure. Especially if you're going to put 9 people on it. That's a ton of weight for that boat, and I wouldn't go any smaller than that 200. And I would also consider, okay, yeah. So that's what you're looking for is I would think the brand, it doesn't really matter the brand. You want it to fit your budget. The Tahoe is a value brand. If you're buying it from a Bass Pro Shop, it's the Jorge, I'll get to you here in just a second. Um, yeah, the 225 might be the way to go. Depending on what the upcharge in it, probably maybe more than that, 5,000, something like that. But I think you would be happier if you're gonna put 9 on it somewhat consistently, and that's when you're going to be tubing is when you have the big group. I think you would be happy with that bigger horsepower. And the other thing that I would look at is make sure you got good fishability access with fishing seats up front, if that's important to you. I don't know what type of fishing that you would be doing, but that style's a good one. Think about Brian, here's a way I like to equate it with the value boat. You're going to be totally safe. You're going to be fine on a Tahoe, and people that have Tahoes, a lot of them love it. But it is a value model, which you're going to have some little ticky tacky things come up that you're going to have to take care of and just deal with. The upholstery over time will kind of come apart at the seams after you got to take really really good care of it to avoid that. But you can get a 21 foot and you can keep your budget down a little bit. um, okay, yeah, you've got a couple of conflicting things with bass fishing, walleye fishing, and tubing. Yeah, man, you got 3 things that don't really merge well together. So there's gonna be a lot of compromise, and I would assume your son is gonna have access to a true bass boat for his serious bass fishing. Um Yeah, it is. So I would think about this first boat as, hey, we're gonna get a boat that gets us started. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going, Brian. Is this first boat that's gonna get us started? We figure out what we're gonna really, really love and where we're gonna spend most of our time, and you'll kind of find those lanes where you go a lot. Like, hey, we do a lot more tubing than we thought we were going to. We do a lot more walleye fishing or bass fishing than I thought we were going to do. And so that next boat, then you dial it in even more to your perfect style. So really have that conversation with your wife, have that conversation with your kids, and even have that conversation with your best friends about, hey, this is what we're looking at doing. How serious are you guys about joining us? And a consistent basis. Just have those conversations, and I really think that Yeah, I'm in the Carolinas now, Brian. So, but I grew up in Nebraska, boating in those areas, and Okoboji is awesome. But just have those conversations with all 9 of those people, kids included, and you're going to get the kids that they're way out in left field, depending on how old they are. But just having those conversations before you write that final check will help you get the right options. Will help you make that first boat that's trying to do 3 different things. I think you're really going to zero in on the right choice. And then after 2, 3, 4 years with this boat, you're going to have something that you can trade in, you can sell outright, and move into the boat that's going to be even more perfectly suited, because your boating lifestyle has kind of evolved to what it's going to be for that phase of your life. So, all right. Came from Minnesota, they had a boat. Yeah. So that's awesome. So just have that conversation about what you guys are going to enjoy. Go check out Nautic Star, check out the Hurricanes. I think those are 2 other brands that you would enjoy. The and in kind of that same category, value, lower mid tier. Check out the Bayliners. I think the Bayliner deck boats, when you start getting up to the 21, 22 foot size, I don't think they're going to have the options that you're looking for. But I would put those in the same category. And just like I tell everybody, is the dealer really, really matters. The good thing is you've got your Minnesota friends that have boating experience that can give you some advice, but having a good dealer that you're buying a new boat from, that's going to be there for you on warranty, that's going to be there for you on advice, that's going to be there for you when something breaks, or you hit a stump or something weird happens. You've got a resource to go through, including local boating knowledge. So don't discount the dealer as well, because I think that makes a big difference. Go to the boat show in Ames or in Iowa City or wherever you're at, Des Moines, and do some searching if you can, or go visit a bunch of the dealerships in your area, with you and your wife and maybe the kids, or maybe you and the other couple, and just on a research mission. Leave the checkbook at home just to research, have conversations with the salespeople, have conversations with the general manager. If you can, a conversation with the service manager, the service writer, before you write that check. And that's going to give you a great idea of what type of relationship you'll have with them after you write that $65,000 check, and know that they're gonna support you afterwards, because most dealers are really good, but not all. Okay, all right. Mike, you're very welcome. I really enjoy this part that I've just added in the last couple of weeks. So, okay, Jorge, I told you I'd get back to you. Let's see. All right, what's the best guess of time frame when boat manufacturers would catch up? Got quotes on the same boat before supply issues that again. Yeah, Jorge, I regulate. Okay, so I have Jorge. Just the other day, I talked to a dealer that carries Regulator and carries Sea Hunt, and they continue to have issues getting boats in, and they wanted to order a certain number of boats, and um, they were specifically capped. Hey, we can't build that many boats to fulfill what all of our dealers want. So they said, you wanted 25, we can only give you 16. That's happening with every brand of people that I've talked to in the industry. Joe, somebody that was on, I think it was Joe, said he is in the tech industry, and because of chips, they're expecting their economists, they're people that are projecting way smarter, way more intelligence than I have, are saying 2023, before the supply chain kind of levels out. That's kind of my gut to say 12 to 18 more months of this. And with inflation, with high demand, with low supply, I don't see prices going down anytime soon. So I just, you know, if here's what I say to people is, if the finances of it are going to drive you crazy that you're spending that much more on a boat, that you just won't be able to deal with it, then don't buy a boat. If you are, but keep this in mind too. If you have a kid that's 10 years old or 12 years old, and it's going to be a year and a half to 2 years before things switch, they're going to be going from 10 to 12, from 12 to 14, from 14 to 16, 16 to 18. And now they're out of the house going off to their life, whatever they're going to do. Um, it's tough to put a dollar amount. Like, I'm not willing to invest an extra $3, $4, $5,000 in some cases. And I'm gonna choose to give up on that time that I'm never gonna get back. Like I said when I started this, I went to my first NFL game. Took my daughter to her first NFL game today. I took my oldest daughter to her NFL game like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I'm never going to get a chance to take my 7-year-old to an NFL game again. And we had the best time, and we spent a ton of money because I didn't care. I was like, whatever you want I said, within reason, within my reason, not yours, I'll let you do. I'll buy you a donut. I'll get you a slushie. We can get the refillable souvenir cup. You can get Domino's pizza, whatever. We're going to have the blast together. And we did. We left at 11. I got home at 8 and we had a ball. We took pictures. We laughed. Those memories she's going to have forever. And it didn't matter that I probably spent an extra $100 that I may not have needed to. Small compared to the thousands of boating, but think about that trade-off. And there's a point where, hey, we just financially, it doesn't make sense. Then that's fine. Make that choice. If the finances aren't a big deal, aren't that important, you're not going to get that time back. Make the decision to make the memories with your kids if you've got the kids. That's my personal, to me, one of my biggest values is family. If that's part of the boating decision, I think that's what matters. It's what's important to me. But that's the choice that you have to make. That's the balance I think you have to make. Yeah, Joe, he's the one that mentioned it. Yeah, shipping costs are going up. I'll tell you the story. My sister-in-law works at a catalog company for home decor, couches, rugs, crap like that. She's in charge of she's got the relationships with China, the manufacturing. And she told me that 2 years ago to bring a container into the US was $2,500. 3 months ago, when I talked to her about this, because it was at the lake, 3 months ago when we talked about this, she said she has a container coming in that was $25,000 to get it into the country. And there was, they had 4 or 5 of them. So 10 times 2,500 to 25,000 just for that container. Nothing about the cost of materials, but getting that container from China to the States to be distributed, 10 times more expensive. Now gas has gone up since we had that conversation. Raw materials have gone up since that conversation. So I think you're right. Having to put stuff on planes. Yeah. I've heard of 3 months ago, it was August, September is when boat manufacturers release their next year pricing because they start shipping boats. Actually, July. They start shipping the boats in August is when it rolls over to the next year. And there are manufacturers that were saying, we will put you in line for this boat, but I'm not giving you the price. I can't lock in what the price will be. We know they're going to go up. We just don't know how high they're going to go up. If you want the spot in line, put a deposit on it. It'll be refundable, but we're not going to give you a price of that boat. And there were manufacturers that were doing that for 2 months because they just didn't know. Jorge, you're very welcome. Yeah. So if that kid's going off to school and are going off to their life, whatever they're doing, and the boat, the regulator, the Caymans, the Sea Hunt, if that is for your life as empty nesters, then that time factor, it doesn't hey, you're okay as long as you're comfortable doing that for yourself. But I do see, Joe is right. I do see that that prices are going to continue to go up in the short term. In the long term, short term, I'm talking um, 2 years. I think that third year, I just don't know. We're gonna that third year, we're gonna have another presidential election. COVID should hopefully be in the rearview mirror for most people. Supply chain issues should be figured out. But who knows what holds after that. Took my 8-year-old fishing trip, follow up marsh fishing. Yeah, changed his life. Looking at boats and memory, you Brian, there's something about being on the boat with kids, and I don't know if you've gone. It looks like your picture is actually you guys on the water. Um, there's something about memories with your kids. If you this is So my family, if you don't know my story, my family got into boating when I was 5. I have an older brother and a little sister, but this is a picture that I keep up on my wall of my daughter, my nieces and nephews, um, and then my oldest one. You can't see her, but that's my brother and my sister's family and my family out at our place. And those kids were a year and a half to 5 years old, and we had them out on the Mabel with my mom, who was 70 some years old, and she got a Mabel with her kids. And one of my kids, my nephew was diagnosed with a genetic disorder, and he is now in a wheelchair. He has lost his vision. He is has a feeding tube in, and when he was 2 or 3 in this picture, he he got on the Mabel with my kids, with my mom, with his grandma, and now it's he's 6 years later. It's life changes. Make the memories when you can. Don't make a bad financial decision. I'm not telling that story to make you. I don't care if you buy a boat or not. I'm not making a commission on you buying a boat. That's why I like to do these, is because I have no ulterior motive of other than the memories you make with your kids, with your family, with your friends is amazing on a boat, and I don't think there's many places you can do that. So, all right, that's enough there. I'm going to wrap this up. Cut a monster. That's awesome. That is awesome, Brian. Um, Plan for what happened when COVID hit, as soon as the lockdown started. Yeah, you're exactly right. The the COVID lockdown, the COVID restriction, boat manufacturers did the same thing in March. I'm pretty well connected in the boating industry, throughout dealers and manufacturers and conversations that I have with people in February and March. If you were talking to people in the boating industry of 2020, they thought they were going out of business. They were filing for, hey, how can we get some federal money? How can we get some help? What can we do to support? Um, Everybody shut down. Dealerships sent people home. Manufacturers laid people off, just like Joe's saying. And you know, come April, sales through the roof. They've been through the roof ever since, but they laid all those people off. Some people took early retirement. Some people said, forget it. I'm not going back to work in that environment and putting my health at risk. Some people said, you know what? I found a different opportunity. Some people said, unfortunately, hey, I'm going to take this unemployment opportunity and I'm going to stay home with my kids. Some people had kids that couldn't get to school. Because they had virtual school and somebody had to stay home with them. And so the workforce got depleted, and it happened in the boating industry, just like Joe's saying, everywhere. And they've never recovered on the personnel side, the worker side, the labor side, and now the supply chain issues, and it's happening all the way down the line. So Yeah, Joe, thank you for adding those inputs. All right, guys, I'm going to call it quits. It is been over an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you guys all for the questions. Thank you for those that have invested in the first time boat buyer academy, in the best boat captain on the water training. You can see my girls there with my money back guarantee. If you invest in any of my programs, I can tell you, if you think you get good value on these videos, these live videos, the two programs I put together are outstanding. There's a pontoon version and a single engine version. I'm working on the other versions, and the first time boat buyer academy is awesome as well. If you don't agree, ask for a refund. I'll give it to you, no questions asked. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'll be back next Sunday. And I'm thinking about, I enjoy these so much. I'm thinking about maybe adding a Wednesday one. So stay on the lookout for that. If that, I know there's one guy in particular that would rather watch Sunday Night Football than me. I can't understand it, but I guess it makes sense. I'm no Tom Brady, as he would say, but just kidding, Rob, if you happen to be listening. Thank you guys very much. And I will see you guys next week.